When India launched Operation Synindor on May 7, 2025, PAF Base Peshawar once again found itself at the heart of national defense, but in a dramatically different, more lethal context than any air operation in recent memory. As Indian missile and airstrikes targeted multiple Pakistani air bases, including high-profile installations like Musharraf, Sargodha, Nur Khan, Rafiqui, and others, Peshawar's strategic value and its vulnerabilities became starkly apparent. PAF Base Peshawar's operational aircraft, including JF-17 Thunder, newer JF-10C CE Vigorous Dragons, and upgraded F-16s, were launched on combat air patrols, CAP, to defend Pakistan's airspace, particularly the north and northwest corridors. When Indian Rafale and Su-30 MKI jets initiated standoff and missile attacks on sites from Kashmir down to southern Punjab, Peshawar-based fighters contributed to Pakistan's layered, multi-axis defense network. As home to Northern Air Command, Peshawar was a key C2 node. Its radars and AEW and C platforms, including assets like the Saab 2000 Iri, fed real-time intelligence to the National Air Defense Grid, fusing satellite, ELINT, and on-the-fly tactical data. This enabled the PAF to direct responsive CAPs and attempt salvage operations at threatened bases. Saab 2000 Iri, which took off from PAF Base Peshawar, was shot down over Dinga by India using S-400. This was the longest ever kill recorded by, as the Americans would say, the double-digit SAM, distance of 314 km. I have created a video about it. We'll leave a link in description and comment section. Despite heavy YEO, electronic warfare, jamming and cyber-disabling of some network elements, Peshawar's surviving systems provided vital situational awareness as missile salvos swept through Punjab and into Khyber Pakhtunkhwa airspace. Survivability and dispersal. Unlike forward bases that quickly absorbed direct hits, Peshawar benefited, initially, from greater operational depth. Early strikes targeted major eastward bases, allowing Peshawar to serve as a dispersal and replenishment node. Fighters from ruined or cratered runways at more exposed bases flew west to land, refuel, rearm, and relaunch from Peshawar. This made it an oasis for regroup, but also placed it in the second wave of Indian targeting as the operation intensified. Sustaining air operations under attack. By day 3 of the conflict, India's highly accurate cruise missile and loitering munition strikes began penetrating deeper into Pakistani airspace. While Peshawar's main runways survived the first salvos, satellite and open-source imagery later confirmed its southern dispersal areas, and some infrastructure suffered at least one direct hit, leading to temporary shutdowns and major repair efforts. Still, the airbase managed limited launch and recovery of airborne patrols throughout the operation, mainly because India's early focus remained on higher value and more densely packed bases in Punjab. India's Operation Synindor saw extensive use of loitering munitions and armed drones. Peshawar, like much of the northern PAF grid, had to contend with the threat of saturation drone swarms as well as missile attacks. Reports indicate that while damage was significant, much of Peshawar's core command infrastructure withstood the initial wave, allowing continued coordination of air defense and UAV interception efforts. Peshawar's location away from the Punjab heartland provided vital minutes of warning for incoming attacks, affording the PAF more time to launch aircraft and marshal defensive assets. As a secondary operational center, it proved crucial for receiving, sheltering, and redeploying survivors and aircraft from other stricken bases. The airbase's proximity to urban Peshawar intensified concerns around collateral civilian casualties. Some Indian weapons reportedly struck close to the city's edges, forcing partial dispersal of assets even onto highways and hard-to-secure urban sites. The following is a deep operational and infrastructure analysis, synthesized from multi-temporal, open-source satellite imagery as provided. An oblique view captures the urban military interface. Jihadist-plagued Peshawar city crowds one side of the field, while a sweeping dual-use runway dominates the center. Apron areas on the lower left brim with commercial passenger jets at the civil terminal, demonstrating the civilian-military integration that amplifies logistics throughput yet complicates security. On the northeast and south, Hardstands and dispersal aprons reveal Air Force infrastructure tucked in among satellite towns and green belts, an operational headache for defending urbanized airspace and sealing off vulnerabilities to asymmetric threat. Service roads, barrack complexes, fueling points, and taxi networks demonstrate a continual readiness to activate any part of the field under duress. A detailed close-up of runway 35's northern end reveals heavy concrete surfacing, apron markings, and direct links to multiple alert pads. Inset to the right, the classic H marks designate helipads, typical for SAR or utility rotary flying. Such positioning, within 30 meters of taxi exit, underscores a doctrine that puts time to launch above all else for critical lift. Asset protection is implicit. The proximity of trees and berms disrupts visual targeting, while the geometric spread of parking pads minimizes cross-target vulnerability from cluster munitions. A layered dispersal zone radiates from the southern edge of the field. At least 6 hardened shelters plus a cluster of smaller structures, possibly unit HQs or ready rooms. The Y and hockey stick layouts, with embedded taxiways, mirror best practices from NATO and Warsaw Pact doctrine. Aircraft are both close to the runway and protected from direct blast effects. A secure service area holds 2 long green vehicles, possibly tactical fuel or mobile generator trucks, beside a camouflaged shed. This demonstrates the logistical muscle required to keep the base fueled and the runways operable 24/7. Tactical vehicles at the ready, sheltered by walls, are a telltale sign of frequent loading-unloading cycles and hot refuel capability for sustained high-frequency sorties. The shelter, note, is independent. Any one aircraft can taxi direct to the main artery, free from tailgating limitation. Overlapping blast barriers and anti-fragmentation trenches provide 2 layers of shock mitigation. This setup is a microcosm of base defense. Each plane is isolated, limiting loss from a lucky bomb or extended artillery barrage. This is infrastructure at its most resilient. Twin Y-shaped has with wide aprons, blast baffles, and direct road access. An isolated alert shelter, heavily berthed with camouflage stripes, sits at the edge of an apron. The pale, rectangular covers on the shelters are probably polymer or canvas heat-cooling add-ons, a nod to the region's blistering summer climate and the need to preserve avionics and munitions. No aircraft are visible on this day, but the shelter size is large enough to accommodate all standard PAF Deltawing fighters or even JF-17s, showing flexibility across generations and missions. A single fighter, clearly larger proportionally, sits in a HAZ. Here, engine length and tail size support a Mirage Thunder identification, the model's width too broad for an F-7PG. The length of the concrete tongue extending outward from the shelter is a risk-mitigating feature. A fire at the ramp head is less likely to threaten the HAZ itself, and turnaround crews can work in relative safety. A dramatic shot of the runway midsection, adjacent to a solar panel array, an uncommon but growing trend in South Asian airbases for grid redundancy. To the right of the panels lie standoff hardened shelters, again with Y layouts and separate entryways. Their distance from the solar grid is deliberate. If one is destroyed, the other remains functional, ensuring both energy independence and operational flexibility in a blackout scenario. A secure, possibly ceremonial or headquarters zone, identifiable by a walled polygon with a prominent national star and crescent painted on the paving. Ceremonial pads are not mere decoration. They double as visual guidance for rotary assets, VIP or urgent cargo, during low-visibility landings or security sweeps in times of heightened threat. A mixed-use alert ramp. The 4-engine C-130 Hercules is flanked by 2 support vehicles, likely fueling and ground power units. The aircraft's wingspan and distinctive tail make it unmistakable. Such cargo activity highlights the logistical side of the base, airlifting men, munitions, medical, or even special forces within hours if needed. The clustering of vehicles and lack of cover suggest short turnaround, maximizing time-on-ground efficiency. A fighter, JF-17, since the wing-to-fuselage ratio is too broad for F-7, is seen taxiing, midway along a major base artery, nose pointed toward the main apron, shadow sharp in the summer sun. Unlike static storage, this signals operational tempo. Jets are shuffled between pads, has, and runways, rehearsing launches or confirming readiness drills. Another fighter, now with 2 support trucks, one possibly an APV auxiliary power vehicle, and the other a general crew van. The crew can perform full systems checks, pre-fuel and weapons arming while the aircraft is stationary, a doctrine prioritizing minimum downtime. Space and orientation allow for quick clearance in case of a scramble order. A jet waits at the runway threshold, lines clearly marking a single-point hold. Skid marks at the threshold indicate fresh takeoffs and recurring, intensive pilot training. PAF's doctrine includes continuous air defense sorties, even in peacetime, underscoring the tempo sustained at this base. A cluster of has, their camouflaged roofs blending with the surrounding scrub. The presence of adjacent maintenance and logistics sheds is crucial. Fighters can be serviced, rearmed, and returned to shelter within minutes, rather than in exposed pads. A wide view of northern dispersals. 10 shelters, several with visible jets, punctuate woodland and brownfield pockets. Tree cover is partly strategic, hiding aircraft from aerial and satellite reconnaissance, and partly environmental, helping manage the dust and heat that plague such facilities. An ultra-wide comprehensive overview, with runways, taxiways, and dispersals annotated in red. The highlighted jets are seen positioned for immediate sortie. Their separation and orientation correspond to current Ready 5 QRA practices. This image, when studied alongside NOTAMs and flight tracking, would allow real-time OSINT assessment of the base's alert posture. Final macro view, the main runway, full dispersal interface, and taxi networks. Has distribution here appears optimized for major exercises or real-world strike waves. Upwards of a dozen aircraft could be launched without delay, while others remain protected or in maintenance. Notable is the proximity to urban areas, underlining the persistent security and operational pressure unique to Peshawar. What emerges from a full-featured review of these images is a portrait of a base engineered for attrition warfare, day-to-day air sovereignty, and crisis resilience. Aircraft identification, upon closer and repeated inspection, establishes a predominance of Mirage IIIV and possibly JF-17 fighters, supported by visible transporters, C-130s, and light utility props. The base's layout, hardened, redundant, and spaced, reflects global best practices adapted to local threats. Each sector, be it operational dispersal, logistics, maintenance, alert readiness, or ceremonial, contributes to a living ecosystem. Perimeter fencing, internal roads, and supporting infrastructure signal not just static defense but dynamic adaptability. Urban encroachment has brought new challenges, from physical security to the management of airspace for both civil and military users. PAF Base Peshawar's ability to rapidly generate sorties and its investment in survivability features make it a pillar in Pakistan's air defense architecture. Its seamless blend of old Cold War hardening with modern operational tempo and logistical adaptation is visible in every shelter, ramp, and access taxiway. The base's ongoing modernization, evident in solar grids and new aprons, ensures it remains relevant for the future, poised to meet both symmetric and asymmetric threats head-on. In sum, each provided image tells a unique slice of this story. PAF Base Peshawar is more than a military outpost. It is a living, evolving epicenter of Pakistan's posture at its most critical geopolitical margin, a base where the realities of conflict and the certainty of preparedness intersect every hour, every day.